Okay, here we go. I think I found where we are. Okay, Mitzvah Hashem. If this is where we are, this is great. And if this is not where we are, then it's also great because you don't remember anyway. So let's not talk about that, huh? I remember yesterday we spoke about the idea that you're supposed to make the bracha whilst your hands are still wet. If you dried your hands, which sometimes you just like start going through that, you wash your hands, you start drying them without really thinking about what it is that you're doing. So b'di'eved, de facto, after the fact, you can, if you made the bracha, that's okay, right? Making a bracha over dry hands doesn't mean that it was a bracha levatola. However, according to all opinions, once you've made the bracha, you need to dry your hands very well, right? Why is that? Because the Gemara says that if you eat the bread with wet hands, it's as if you're eating impure bread. Right, so you've got to be careful. Right, again, you've got to be careful when you're drying your hands. You've got to be careful when you're washing your hands. You've got to make sure that they're nice and dry when you come to eat the bread. Interesting. How about something for today's day and age? According to halacha, we've got this thing in halacha of lechatchila and b'di'eved, right? Lechatchila is doing something absolutely the correct way to begin with, and b'di'eved is doing it, in a way that's not quite the best way, yeah. And according to the lechatchila way of drying your hands, you should be using something to dry your hands on, not a hot air machine. Right?
Not a machine?
Yeah. You should use something you should use a hot air. You should not use. So we're going to get there in a minute. We should not use a hot air machine.
What about Aisha Yotzer?
That's okay. That's a different Indian. Yeah, you know what? When you go to the bathrooms all over the place nowadays, that's all they have: hot air. Yeah. Some of them are really nifty. You just stick your hands inside, and they're great.
It actually dries.
Pardon?
It actually dries. It's an amazing new feature.
Oh, never mind that. It's like who cares what it does? It's like this great feeling. You put your hands inside, and your fingers go waving around, and it's great, right? You're not the kind of person who hangs out next to the hot air machine?
No, my friends won't let me. I'm not cool enough to enter into the bathrooms yet.
Oh, all right. Well, it's a shame. You'll get there. I think it's something you can aspire towards. Good. Okay, so you should preferably dry your hands on a towel, on a piece of cloth, not on your clothing. And certainly not on the clothing of the person standing in front of you. No, there's a Gemara. The Gemara says this interesting story. The Gemara says that there was some thefts. Someone was stealing, and one of the rabbis put his eye on one of the boys. He said, "I think this is the one who's stealing the stuff." So they went and they interrogated him and they investigated and they found out that it was. And they came to the rabbi and they asked him, "How did you know?" So he said, "I'll tell you." He says, "I saw everybody lining up to wash their hands for Netilat Yadayim, and I saw that he wiped his hands on the clothing of the person in front of him. And I realized that somebody who has no respect for anybody else's clothing, so for sure he's capable of taking other people's things as well." Right, so there is an Indian. I wasn't being facetious. I really wasn't. There is an Indian. You shouldn't wipe your hands on your own clothing, and you shouldn't wipe your hands on other people's clothing, and you should preferably use a piece of toweling or something. However, if the choice is between allowing your hands to dry by themselves or to dry them in a hot air drying machine, then you should use the hot air machine. It's better to do that than to just allow your hands to dry themselves by themselves. Air dry them. Good. Right? Interesting. Halachically, the towel shouldn't be wet. The one that you're going to use to dry your hands with, it shouldn't be wet. Even though I think hygienically it shouldn't be wet either because that's pretty tacky. But halachically, the same thing is true as well. Okay, before you wash your hands, you need to make sure that the table is ready and that there's going to be no gap between you're washing your hands and you're being able to make hamoiti, which means that you don't wash your hands and then go and get the plate out and go and get the knife and the fork out and then put it all on the table and put everything down to make sure you've got everything you need for your meal, but rather you do it the other way around. Make sure everything is ready, and then and then you are able to make the hamoiti straight away, right? So, for example, you want to eat a sandwich. Don't start making the sandwich after you've washed your hands for Netilas Yadayim. Make the sandwich first, and then you make the bracha in order to be able to eat straight away. You should make the bracha of Netilas Yadayim as soon after washing as possible, which means it's a mistake. Don't wash and then go wandering around, take care of a few things, and then make the bracha of Netilas Yadayim, but rather you make the bracha as soon as you can. Right? And once you've made that bracha, you are not supposed to be speaking, like we spoke about, even including divrei Torah. Somebody comes to you and asks you to tell over a beautiful Torah, a beautiful Torah idea. Once you've washed your hands, that's it. You're not supposed to say anything at all. However, like we spoke about earlier on, it is permissible to ask for things. Right? So, for example, you sit down at the table, there's no salt on the table, and you're having a bit of trouble conveying to the person there that you need the salt. So it is possible to say salt. Of course, if the person that you're with is having trouble understanding when you go like this, so if you say salt, he's probably such a moron that he'll say pepper, imagining that you're playing word association game and not trying to get him to give you the salt. You people may not mix with, such august company, but... Some of us do. Okay, what do you do if you washed your hands, you made your bracha, and you made some kind of a break now between making hamoiti? So what do? You have to wash your hands again. The question is whether you have to make a new bracha or not. It's an interesting machloikes, an interesting disagreement amongst the authorities about whether you do or whether you don't. Really, most people rule that you shouldn't, because we have a concept, we have a rule inside of the halacha, which is safek brachot lahakel, which means that if you're not sure about a bracha, then we're lenient, right? If you're not sure about whether you need to make a bracha or not, you should be lenient. So, for example, you are drinking a cup of Coke or whatever it is, and you don't remember whether you made a bracha or not. So we say safek brachas lahakel, right? That you can be lenient and you can assume that you made the bracha when you first drank the Coke, even though you can't remember, and therefore you don't have to make a bracha again. Of course, if you know that you didn't make a bracha, then of course you have to make the bracha. You should stop drinking, make the bracha over what's left, and then carry on drinking again. That goes without saying. What about answering Amen? Is that called making a break? If somebody else makes a bracha al netilas yadayim whilst you're sitting over there waiting for hamoiti to begin, so it's permissible to answer Amen to somebody else's bracha, right? Not only is it permissible, it's very much recommended. Yeah?
But even though that other person also they wash their hands and sat down, now the other guys make a deal.
Yeah.
And he makes a bracha. So the one that's waiting to, he answers Amen.
He answers Amen, right? That's not considered to be a break between the al netilas yadayim and the hamoiti. It's a big chiddush, right? But normally that's what we do, right? Even when somebody's in a state of what's called hefsek, when you're not supposed to be speaking, if somebody makes a bracha, you're allowed to answer Amen to the bracha.
In regards to the yadayim, you said if your hands, if there's no paper towels, you can't dry yourself on your clothes or on the person next to you.
So yeah.
So what should you do there at that moment?
Okay, so the image is like this. The Mishnah Brura does say that if you have no other alternative whatsoever, you can dry your hands on your own clothing. Okay. But it's interesting, the Mishnah Brura says that you should use the lower part of your clothing. So like maybe dry them on your trousers rather than dry them on your shirt, okay, or dry them on your jacket, for example. Right? But it says, Mishnah Brura says that you really need to try to find something else to dry your hands with if you can.
What about washing them again in the water? I mean, like you do the yadayim, and then you say, okay, so with towel, you don't want to dry yourself in your clothes. Can you turn back the water faucet, open the faucet again, wash your hands back again, and then...
Say it again. Sorry, I'm not...
So after you do the iodine,
Yeah.
there's no paper towels, and you don't want to dry yourself on your clothes.
Okay.
Can you open the faucet and put your hands again to the water
What? As if
stay
to dry them off.
as if to try them off. But is that so cool?
I don't know. It's an interesting idea. I don't think I'm not sure you're achieving anything by doing it. I would imagine the best thing to do, if there's really no other alternative, is just to wave them around a little bit, right, to let them dry off in the air. I'm not sure that the problem is either touching the bread with wet hands is a problem, even if your hands are wet, not from al natilas yadayim. Right, so if you're gonna dry off your hands by putting them under the tap, so now they're going to be even wetter than they were. I'm not sure we're achieving anything over here. Okay, at what point do you have to re-wash your hands? Even if you've washed your hands, you made al natilas yadayim, you made hamoitzi, everything has been running smoothly, but there are a few situations where you may end up having to wash your hands again during the meal. Right? So first of all, you should know that in general, we're supposed to wash our hands if you touch parts of your body which are normally covered by clothing. So you're supposed to wash your hands afterwards. Right? So for example, just to keep this nice and simple, yeah. If you decide that you just have to scratch your armpit inside, not outside, inside. Then you would have to wash your hands again after you've done so. It's okay to scratch your armpit. It's fine. But you need to go and wash your hands afterwards. If you touch any part of your body which is normally covered, so for example, your feet, I'm just trying to think of parts of your body that you people keep covered. Actually, your armpits and your feet are normally not uncovered.
What if you scratch on your...
If you scratch on top of your clothing, that's okay. If you scratch underneath, it's a problem. Right? If you touch, I don't know, if you change a baby's diaper. Now, why you would be changing a baby's diaper, I don't know, but it's definitely flavor of the month at the moment. So, if you change a baby's diaper, you would need to wash your hands afterwards, without making a bracha, just to wash your hands and to clean them off, right? If you scratch your scalp, right, now, touching your hair is not a problem per se, but if you decide to have a little dig inside and you start scratching your scalp, then that's a problem, and you need to wash your hands. If you go to the bathroom, you need to wash your hands, right? If you fall asleep at the meal, so why you would do that, I don't know. But if you were to fall asleep at the meal for a short nap, then you would need to wash your hands afterwards. The truth is that you need to wash your hands after all these things anyway. It's got nothing to do with being at a meal, right? Which means that if you take an afternoon nap, when you get up, you need to wash your hands. You don't have to go through the whole procedure that you go through in the morning when you get up. It's not the same thing, but you do need to wash your hands because you've been asleep. Here, when this class comes to an end, right, you need to wash your hands because you've been asleep, right? Right?
Yeah, but mine's wide open.
I can see your eyes are wide open, but that doesn't mean you're not asleep.
You better go wash your hands.
No, wait until he's finished.
Oh, that's right.
I have to do it again. That's ridiculous, no?
Does that work also scratch behind your ears? Is that also scratching yourself?
No, that's okay. Actually, scratching behind your ears is okay, and also because that's an exposed part of your body. The scalp has got to do with your hair, which means that if you've got the parts of your scalp that are covered by your hair, if you're going to scratch through there, then you need to go and wash your hands. Otherwise, the other parts of your body you don't need to worry about. Interestingly enough, also, it is rather interesting that if you scratch your beard, right, and you scratch through your beard and you touch your skin underneath your beard, that's okay. There's no problem. Right? It's only the skin on the top of the head.
So then if that's the case, the same logic should apply that if someone's bald, if they touch their scalp as well, they shouldn't have to wash their hair.
Could be.
Because it's exposed.
Yeah, it could be.
Okay.
It could be. It's an exposed part of their body, yeah. We would have to find somebody who doesn't have hair on their head, right? So if we ever find anybody like that, then we'll ask them.
Hair. I don't wash. I don't.
Good. Okay. Here.
Scratch So what's the halal? Do I have to wash?
No, you know what? I need to look into it, but I think not. I think not. I think you're right. I think it has a din of being like an exposed part of your body once the hair is no longer there. That's what I remember, but that's not saying much, to be honest.
What about the scratch inside your ear or your nose or your? I was told that your ears, your nose, and even your eyeball scratch around it is like considered to be. Is also like scratching your head.
I tell you something. I don't know. When I was a bocher, many years ago, I had a chavrusa who told me that if you put your fingers in your ears, then you have to wash your hands afterwards. And for years I was sort of like, I was plagued by this because I never ever found a source for this.
Okay.
So I mean, first of all, most people pick their noses, right? You'd be washing your hands all day long. But I've never seen a source for it. So I don't think so. If you can find a source, I'll be happy to see it for sure. But we could go through it and just make sure that it's referring to that's what it really means. But I don't know. Does anybody here know of anything? Did anybody here? Have you heard of that at all? Anybody?
I haven't. My Hebrew. That's why. I mean, that's why I asked this question.
Yeah, they're dangerous things, chavrutas. Yeah, you see, that's what happened to me as well. And for years, I was carrying this around. I was traumatized. I'm telling you, it was a difficult period in my life.
I had no Q-tips.
Anyway, what do we do about eating a meal and then having a long break without eating inside of your meal? So we spoke about it, I think, at one point, but let's just speak about it again because it's kind of important. If you have not eaten within 72 minutes, now not eating, you don't have to eat bread. Anything that's there on the table, right? So, it could be that you've already finished the main meal and now dessert is out and there's all kinds of, little bits and pieces to nosh on over there. So long as you're eating something every 72 minutes, you can then continue with the same original bracha of Al Natilas Yadayim and Hamoitzi. You can continue using that one. I remember, right, somebody asked whether you could probably get through the day, right? If you plan this out properly, you can wash once in the morning and you can bench once at night by just making sure. The problem is you've got to stick around in the same place, right? Which is, if the food is good, maybe that's not such a big deal, actually. But if, for whatever the reasons, more than 72 minutes have gone past since you ate something, so now if you want to carry on eating, you've got to wash and you've got to make a moti all over again, right? Because it's as if you finished the last meal, even though you didn't bench, you finished the last meal, and now you've got to begin a whole new meal instead. So let's take off a moment, if we're already talking about this, because I think it's kind of important, to do with the concept of after brachas, after blessings. We've got 3 different kinds of after blessings. So, for a vast majority of foods that we eat, so we make at the end of it a short after bracha called Borei Nefashot Rabot V'Chezronon. So you need to know that if you ate or drank something that requires that after bracha, you've got a half an hour to be able to make the bracha inside of. So let's say, for example, you got your bottle of water over here, and you make your shahakol over the water, and you've drunk enough to make sure that you've got to make an after bracha, which is a cheek's full worth of water in one go, and then you're taking sips, right? The whole time you're taking sips, there's no problem. Every sip extends your half-hour limit, right? However, you get to the end of your bottle, and if you want to make a after bracha, so you've got to do it within half an hour. If you haven't done it within half an hour, then you've lost the opportunity to make the after bracha over what you've just eaten or what you've just drunk. If you make a mezonot, so pasta, cake, pretzels, cookies, that kind of stuff, you have 42 minutes, you've got 45 minutes within which to make your after bracha, the ala michya. Right, now again, you can extend that the whole time. You don't have to extend it by eating whatever it was that you were eating. So let's say, for example, you're having a cookie and you're having a drink. You can continue sipping your drink. Every time you sip that drink, you've extended your ala michya limit by another 45 minutes. Right? You get the idea. And the last one is like we just mentioned, which is when you're making hamoitzi and you're having a whole meal, then you've got 72 minutes within which to bench, and if you want to extend that 72 minutes, you've got to have something to eat or drink in the, within that 72 minutes in order to extend it by another one. And you can keep going, right? Like I mentioned, whatever. The Mishnah Berurah does say something interesting, right? Whether you're sitting at a meal and you're not eating, but you're holding your piece of bread in your hand. So the Mishnah Berurah says that also constitutes, an awareness of the fact that you're eating in the meal, and it's okay to be able to, that's also one way of being able to extend your limit to be able to bench without actually eating anything. But I would recommend that you actually eat something, a little something, whatever it is, it's no big deal. So for example, seriously, if you're sitting at the meal and dessert has come out, all bits of kind of nosh, a jelly bean will now extend your 72 minutes, right? A nut will extend your 72 minutes. I guess that depends on whether you've gone to an American family or to an Israeli family. Depends on whether you get a jelly bean or whether you get a nut, right? But you get the idea. Yes, you get the idea? I think we need to bring Negelwasser here into this room for people at the end. There should be like a jerry can by the door or something so that you could all wash before you go out. Okay, what can you use in order to wash your hands with? You can really use anything, even though we've all got, what's everybody seems to have are these ubiquitous Negelwasser washing cups, with comes in different shapes and sizes, but they're pretty much, it's a cup with two handles on the side. You don't have to have that. You can use almost anything in order to be able to wash your hands with, whatever is available, right? So, for example, you go out on a tiyul and you don't have an ornate silver gilt inlaid, washing station. You just have a plastic disposable cup. So use a plastic disposable cup, even a bottle. A bottle is fine as well. If you've got nothing else, you can use a bottle as well. What you do need to be careful about is that the thing that you're using shouldn't be cracked or shouldn't be chipped. Right? So it's better to use a plastic disposable cup which is not cracked than to use a beautiful, Netilat Yadayim vessel which has got a crack in it or which has got a chip in it.
Even if it's a small chip?
Yeah.
In the inside or the outside?
Oh, interesting question. On the inside or on the outside? If it's on the outside, for sure it's a problem because it's something that can be seen, right? If it's on the inside, it's less of a problem. Right? It's to do, again, what's the big, what do we care if our Negelwasser, if our Netilat Yadayim is chipped or not? What difference does it make? Because it's to do with the concept of shleimus, of doing mitzvahs in their entirety, right? That should be done in completely, right? And the things that we use in order to do our mitzvahs should reflect the shleimus, the shleimut, the entirety of the mitzvah that we're doing. Right? There's a concept. It's a posuk in Shirat Hayam, but there's a concept called Zeh Keli V'Anvehu, that this is my God and I will beautify him. And that's the idea of something that can be done with something. Here, you've got a mitzvah to wash your hands. It doesn't say anywhere, for example, many people on Shabbat use a sterling silver Netilat Yadayim, right? It doesn't say anywhere that you have to do that. But there's a concept of Zeh Keli V'Anvehu. By using that, I'm beautifying the mitzvah. Therefore, it's a nice thing to do. Right? On Hanukkah, many people spend a lot of money on Hanukkah buying themselves a silver menorah. Right? You don't have to do that. You can in order to fulfill the mitzvah of lighting candles on Hanukkah, you could just, in the shul that I daven in during the week, they actually, believe it or not, they have shot glasses from vodka.
Oh, I believe it.
It's
What's
not.
vodka?
It's huh?
What's vodka?
I don't know. I was told that that's what it was for.
Freddie's never experienced it.
We drink only water in England. The water is more potent than anything else. So, it's kind of cute. It really is. I mean, not that I know what shot glasses are, and not that I know what vodka is. It's cute, right? Why is it cute? I don't know. But they told me it was cute. So
What do you know?
I don't know that either, actually. But You know, can you fulfill the mitzvah using shot glasses? Yeah, of course you can. But if you go out and you buy a silver menorah, what are you doing? You're enhancing the mitzvah, you're beautifying the mitzvah by having a beautiful utensil to do the mitzvah in. That's really where Judaica comes from. Right? You know, there's an incredible market in Judaica. There's Judaica for everything, right? For silver Kiddush cups and for challah, challah bases and you name it, right? Where's it all coming from? It's coming from this concept of beautifying the mitzvah. Your netilat yadayim, the vessel that you're using, you want to beautify the mitzvah in the best way that you can, so it shouldn't be chipped and it shouldn't be cracked.
That works for either plastic or ceramic, right?
Anything.
How do you tell the family that it's cracked, it's broken? I mean, the handle of the ceramic cup is broken. I can't use it. Can you just tell the family like that, or will they be disrespected?
Oh, you know what? Good question. What's the way? I guess first of all, it depends who the family is. If it's a family that you know, right, so that you could feel comfortable by saying, "Oh, I see you've lost a handle. You've flown off the handle over here. But you've lost a handle, and I was wondering maybe you have another netilat yadayim that could be used. So you could do that, I guess. If it's somebody that you absolutely don't know, you've got sent to somebody for Shabbat, and you've never met them before, and you've got no idea. So I think there are two possible approaches. One of them is to perhaps to mention to the balabayit that you learnt in a class that maybe this wasn't great to use a netilat yadayim that was missing a handle. Yeah, so you take him aside and you say you seem to remember, not to come along and say, yo, you bozo.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, listen up.
No.
Yeah, so in my experience,
This is cracked. Sorry, I'm done.
it sounds like you are too as well, actually. But
Probably.
in my experience, those kinds of approaches don't always go down very well, right? If it's like gentle and you just take them aside, not in front of everybody, and say, I was just wondering because I don't know, I seem to remember that we learnt once that the netilat yadayim needs to, it's better that it should be whole, and I see that you're missing a handle, maybe it'll go down well. If for sure, if you're concerned that it's going to embarrass them, or that somebody's going to get upset, or somebody maybe even Khalilah is going to get angry, so for sure it's better to use the netilat yadayim that's there, rather than to
Salt or whatever.
right?
Better to tell them afterwards, after dinner. Say, hey, get a new cup, right? For next
Or next time you go there, to bring them one. They're not terribly expensive, these things, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That'd be a nice thing to do, And if
Metal,
they
metal one maybe.
This is a gift for Rabbi Lauffer.
Can you take one and take it back with you when you go back?
Steal it?
You can bring your own.
Oh yeah.
You're like, yo, I'm not using that. I got my own, and it's coming home with me.
You know what? I don't know, but we once had a guest who came for Shabbos and he brought us a bottle of wine as a present and he drank it himself. Way to go! I mean, I suppose it could have been more offensive. He could have brought his own sandwiches or something, but then
Why, you guys didn't have wine?
we had. But he brought it as a gift, so I thought it was a nice idea. We'll open the bottle of wine and have it on the table, and he drank it himself.
I mean, I brought whiskey for
But you
people.
guys-
and then
Did
some
you
other guy
invite
drinks
him
all
again?
of it.
Huh?
Did you invite him again?
Good question. Yeah, the kind of wine that he brought, that he drank. No, he should bring something better than that, for sure. The wine that I'm not drinking has to be good quality, you know that.
You drink wine, Rabbi? Grape juice.
Listen, we've been through this in the past, and you're just doing this to embarrass me in public. But I am a fully dues paid up wimp.
Oh, I mean, so do I. I mean,
No. I'm a bigger wimp than you are. I don't like alcohol at all.
Oh, same.
I don't like nothing. The only thing that I can do sometimes, I can drink a little bit of sweet wine.
So what do you do, Pesach?
On Pesach, oh, don't ask. On Pesach, I use sweet wine, sweet bubbly
So
wine
you
actually.
Go have can you have
I put some. I add a little bit of grape juice in it just to make it more palatable. But you are looking at the epitome of patheticness? Thank you. Thank you.
Not even close.
I was like, oh, I'm looking at myself. Oh, okay.
No, you're just being, I've always say you're just being kind, and I know that you don't mean it. So I use grape juice. Every now and then, if it's like an interesting looking wine, I'll have a little bit, just to try, but not for Kiddush. That's why on Purim, it's easy for me to fulfill the mitzvah of Purim because I don't drink wine very often at all. So if I drink two cups of wine and I'm finished, I've fulfilled the mitzvah of Purim to the nth degree. That's what I'm told, anyway.
A quick question, Rabbi. In regards to wine, when the Kohen has to do the blessing, it's usually he does it.
Yeah.
What is it like the wine? Can you just go up and say, I don't want that wine, I want grape juice? It's like, it's what we have, we get to drink. It's what we have, what you get.
Well, it's interesting, it's interesting. Most places that I ever went to as a guest, what I've noticed is that asking people to make Kiddush, they'll always ask them, do you want wine or grape juice? Right? And most houses seem to have both, yeah? If they don't ask you, and some people can't drink wine, right? So for example, if somebody's got an alcohol intolerance, or somebody, I don't know, diabetic, sometimes wine I think is worse than grape juices. You can get hold of sugar-free grape juices, but I'm just saying, like, if there's a reason, so sure, the person should say, listen, if you have grape juice, I'll be happy to make Kiddush, and if not, if you could please make Kiddush for me instead. Just keep it polite. That's all, which might be an uphill struggle for some of you.
It is tough.
How did I know that?
Genius.
Okay, well, what do you do? What do you do if you don't have? You've got a body of water in front of you. So, let's say you've got on a tiul and you've got a lake in front of you, but you don't have anything to pour to get the water to pour it over your hands with. It's then permissible to immerse your hands into the lake, right? If that water is a permissible body of water that you would be able to immerse to use as a mikveh, you can then put your hands into it, right?
Maybe kind of like 1, 2, or I don't get it. How would one do it? I gotta see.
Would you scoop up the water in one hand?
No, you don't even have to do that.
Both hands.
No. You could just put your hands. Actually, got a stream running down, right? You could just put your hands into the water. How do you do it? I don't. Do you know? How many times have I told you not to ask me questions I don't know the answers to? I have to keep telling you the same thing over and over again. It's ridiculous. What are you laughing about?
I don't want to ask another question. So.
I don't think as far as I can remember, I don't think you have to do it alternately. I think you could just put both hands into the water at the same time. But it's an interesting Kiddush, it really is, because everything we've learned up until now is the importance of having a vessel. But if you don't have a vessel and the water is something that could be used to immerse as a mikveh, so then you can use it to wash your hands just by putting your hands into the water, right? So, I don't know, you go on a tiul and you get to a beautiful waterfall, right? You could put your hands into the waterfall and you can wash your hands like that in order to be able to make the hamoitzi. You could do the same thing with a pile of snow, right? So if you've got, let's say you live in a place where there's plenty of snow, and you go out and you don't have, or maybe you do, but what are you going to do? You're going to stick it in the snow and then what? Like stand there waiting for it to melt, right? So you could stick your hands into the snow, so long as there's enough snow there to cover both your hands properly. Right? So if you have snow like over here, normally the snow over here is pretty sparse, even though the city closes down, right? But there's maybe half a centimeter worth of snow. That's no good. But if you live in areas where it snows, right? Here in Oregon, it snows.
Oh no, it's like here.
That's about all it is. It's not going to help.
The city shuts down.
Wait, where you come from, it doesn't snow at all, right?
Yeah, there's snow, yeah. Snows.
Oh, there is? A lot?
Yeah, a little bit.
Where?
Mountains in Colorado. In Chile.
Well, you have the skiing last spring.
But in Colorado itself, in I don't know, in the cities, you get enough.
Oh no, you get a little bit, just a little. It's not enough.
Okay, this is not helping. What about you? Where are you from?
St. Louis.
St. Louis.
Yeah, we get snow.
Yeah, enough?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you over there and say that finally, finally we found somebody that we can use in as example. So if you're in St. Louis and you want to eat something, right, and you've got the snow is piled up, you've got enough to be able to put your hands into it so that your hands are completely covered. Fine, that's great. That's going to be enough to be able to make a bracha over it, and it's going to be enough to be able to make hamotzi.
I got one more question that could be ridiculous. Now you say you don't have a vessel, but you have a rag. Can you dip the rag in the water and use the rag to squeeze the water out?
No.
No, that's not.
No. What's the problem? First of all, I don't think it's hard to imagine that you're going to have enough water coming out of this rag to fulfill the minimum requirement, which is a revius, right? Which is not. I mean, you take an Netilat Yadayim cup, right? Envisage how much water goes into that. Well, I don't know what goes in. Maybe.
Why
I mean,
would
for
you
sure,
need
I would say for more than a liter. I would say, right?
Why would you need a rag when you have already the water anyway?
Okay, no, but I'm saying just a possible scenario, right? So no, I don't think that's going to help. It's not going to help, right? Then you probably, if you've got another alternative, you'd be better off using the rag to cover your hands, right, and not to wash them and make the bracha of hamotzi without making out a Netilat Yadayim, rather than trying to soak it and to squeeze the water out of it.
If there's like a thin amount of snow, could you bunch it all together?
Yeah,
and then put your hand in it?
if you could get enough over there to cover both of your hands,
Yeah.
make a little snowman.
Yeah.
Good, yeah, that's a nice idea. Bring your own carrot. Says like this, the most incredible thing, that the reward for al netilat yadayim, the reward for washing your hands properly, is that you should become wealthy. That's not bad, right? So, says the Mishnah Berurah, what do you do with somebody who's very careful about al netilat yadayim and he hasn't become wealthy? It's a good question, right? Because the Chazal, the oral Torah says that the reward for being scrupulous about washing your hands is that you're going to become wealthy. So what do you do with somebody who's very, very careful about this mitzvah and he hasn't become wealthy yet? Ask the Mishnah Berurah. So he says the person's own actions are stopping the additional blessing from resting upon them. Which means it's not that a person can do whatever they want, right? But they're just careful about al netilat yadayim, and therefore they're going to become wealthy. It doesn't work like that, right? A person's got to be careful about everything that they do in order to bring God's blessings down upon them, but that particular blessing is going to come through al netilat yadayim, right? So that sounds like a pretty good motivating factor in order to do it properly, right? One last thing over here. You should not use hot water for al netilat yadayim. Now, I say hot water, obviously I'm not talking about boiling hot water. That you shouldn't use, even not for al netilat yadayim. Right?
For next time.
Well, he will remember that after next time. Oh, didn't he say something about this? However, if you've got hot water, it's cool enough to be able to use to wash your hands, but it's hot water, right? You shouldn't lechatchila. You should not use hot water to wash your hands with, and you should wait for it to cool down, right? Even if it means delaying your meal for a little while, in order to be able to use cold. The water should be cold when you come to wash your hands. Okay, that's it. We have now finished up finally the halachas of Netilat Yadayim. B'mitzvah Hashem, like I mentioned before, tomorrow and the next day we're going to learn the halachas of Tisha B'Av, and that's going to be it for this session, B'mitzvah Hashem. And then after, when we start up again, we'll learn other things. I guess we've got Elul coming and Rosh Hashanah, all that kind of stuff.